What's up everyone, Lance Hedrick here, and today we take a look at how Ikea has stepped up its coffee game. Now recently in Indonesia there was a competitor in the National Brewers Cup Championship that made finalists using this Ikea brewer. This isn't a brewer at all, it's a funnel! But yes, they used a funnel and actually made it to the finalists. Now this competitor's name is Amadeo, and he made the top 6 in the country. With his coach being Jhon, who is a seasoned competitor in Indonesia and actually made 5th in the World Brewers Cup Championship just in 2022. So they had some heavy power behind it. But anyway, is this a viable option? Does it brew good coffee? What would be the purpose of getting one of these? What is it most similar to? We're going to get into all of that and more in today's video. There are going to be people not into this because it is a type of plastic, but it's a food-safe plastic that is capable of holding temperatures up to 100 degrees Celsius. That's actually better than what a Kono can do, and honestly what the plastic V60 can do, because all of mine have cracks all through it. The V60 has that 60-degree angle. This is closer to maybe 70 or so. If we were to put a V60 filter in here, it doesn't quite fit all the sides. There's a lot of the filter off the walls because it's more narrow than the dripper itself. It is kind of in between the V60 and the new hyped dripper called the UFO. Now the UFO is, this is a prototype of it, so if you have one, this won't look like it, but the interior is still essentially the same with the reverse ribs and a much wider angle than a V60. It is kind of the idea that you get a more shallow bed. So between the V60 and the UFO sits our little 99-cent Ikea dripper. You can always take something like a lab paper filter or like the Sybarist B3, which we have right here, and you can do a little origami in order to get it to fit. Or if you want to go simple, you can just take, boom, a Kalita style, April style, whatever style filter, and you can just pop that right in and look at that. It fits just fine, no worries at all. So it'll give you something akin to like an origami. The contact points are going to be on the deeper parts, and so it's kind of similar to that, but you're able to use a Kalita filter or whatever filter in here. You toss this in here, you can negotiate it even. You could even take like the one from the USO and you can squish it down, you can twist it against those walls, and look at here. It's not as pretty because this doesn't fit as well, but I'm sure someone will make a friggin' one of these bad boys for it. But anyway, the idea stands. Any of these filters are going to work for you, except for obviously the V60. So with this, all you got to do is if you take the B3 that's made for the flat walls, all I do is I kind of fold it in half. I do a hard fold on the first one, and the second one I do a softer fold because we're going to kind of reposition this. Now this gives us obviously a 45-degree angle. We need a bit more than that. So we're going to open it up. You put it in the dripper, you open up one of the sides, and then essentially we're just going to spread it until it fits, and then we'll make the recrease when it fits against all of the walls. So we just pull this part here until we have it fully flush against the walls. Then we make a new crease and we wet it under the sink. And there we have it. So of course we do have a fold on one side and not on the other, but I don't think that's going to make the biggest difference because we are pretty flush everywhere else, and these two filters are pretty well sucked together, though it can cause, maybe a little bit of unevenness, but nothing that you're not already experiencing if you're using the foldable flat wallpapers because you're doubling up on parts of the walls, similar to like a Chemex or something like that. Whoops, got a little water on me. Then of course with the other, we just toss that in, we wet it down, and it's good to go. Now obviously that we have these, it's just a simple matter of creating your recipe. So with the normal V60 that has a more narrow bed, I like 15 to 22. With this, I'm closer to 18, 20-ish as the minimum, all the way up to maybe 28 grams without really hurting the extraction process. Because this is going to give us a more shallow bed with the same dose as a more narrow dripper, right? But of course you can do whatever you want. There are people with even the UFO, which is even more shallow, that like low doses because they want the most shallow bed possible. I'm the opposite of that. I like deeper beds relative to the dripper. So anyway, that's what we have going on here. But let's go ahead and brew one of each with the same coffee, and we can just talk about the differences these filters give us. Well, you got me on this, baby. As you can see, there is the funnel part down at the bottom, which I guess you could argue a little pseudoscience here. It could be legit, but as it's going down, it aerates the coffee a little bit extra, just like those expensive decanters that have the little ball in the bottom in order to, aerate the coffee. We have it built in the dripper here, and at the extremely low cost of 99 cents, as opposed to a $100 decanter with a little kind of thing in the bottom that help whatever. We don't need that. We have it built in the brewer right here. But anyway, obviously they're handleless. They don't get hot to the touch because it's plastic, has nice heat retention, and then we have very low bypass, especially on the one where we have suctioned the filter against. So this one will have a bit more bypass. This one has less bypass. This filter is the Sybaris, so it'll be a faster. It'll have the capability of a faster drawdown. This one, however, I don't know which one will be faster because this has all the bypass kind of built in. Putting this type of filter, the Kalita type of filter, in a V60 does work, of course, but it is a bit more narrow, a bit more difficult to work with. It works really well in this because it's quite a bit wider, though again not as wide as the UFO. All right, so we have them done brewing. As I, expected, the one with the B3 Sybaris filter did drain faster, but that's what our beds look like. As expected, it's a brewer. I mean, it may be a funnel, but it's a brewer. So let's go ahead, toss these out, and see what they taste like. The one on the left, the one with the flat bottom filter, does have a bit more sweetness, whereas the one on the right, the conical filter, whatever you want to call it, does seem to have a vibrant acidity, a bit more florality about it, which are, those are pretty much the stigmas that people put on flat bottoms versus cone. It does show up here. I don't necessarily think it always does, but it does show up here. Now, I don't love either of the extractions, likely because it's such a shallow bed, but again, these are simple brewers where you can dial in however you want, right? So there are definitely ways to optimize and to, not optimize your brews depending on how you approach it. For those of you who haven't gotten a filter, for those of you who might be wanting to start in coffee and don't want to spend $15, $20, $50, whatever dollars on a new dripper, this could be an easy option. Now, the filters you can get, if you don't want to do the little foldy fold, you can get just Kalita filters or something like that, and they'll work. Technically, a V60 filter can work in it. It'll just kind of be kind of funkily sat in there, but it will brew coffee. I've brewed one like that. But it was good enough for Amadeo in the Indonesian National Brewers Cup Championship to make finalists. It's good enough for you at home, and I think it's really funny. I love whenever we can reappropriate things from with different purposes into coffee, and this is no different. Just a little funnel, a cute yellow funnel, which will brighten your day, probably make you taste more acidity in your coffee than is actually there because of science. And yeah, that's about it. So hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, hitting the like button and the subscribe are really helpful things for the channel. But thank you for inspiring me to do this video, Amadeo. And thank you to Coach Jhon, who's a seasoned competitor, for deciding to use something so accessible. I love when competitors do things that are accessible to the market around the world as opposed to using things that are a bit outside of the grasp of most people. And so using a dollar dripper was pretty cool move. But anyway, that is enough for me today. Thank you so much, and I hope that you brew something tasty today. And cheers.